I'm not looking to replace hospitality people with AI. I don't want to buy wine from a robot. I want to sit with you and hear your story, why you're here, why you're involved in the winery, in this winery. What is the winery story? I want to build that connection with you. I buy wine not necessarily because of the wine. Of course, the wine's going to be good. Napa makes great wine, and so does Canada. I will buy wine because of the person that I'm with.
Yeah. I think too, a wine serves as a purpose to be able to share a piece of yourself with other people.
Welcome to the CTRL ALT GAB podcast, where we sit down with tech founders to break down how they scale, pivot, and grow. I'm your host, Gabrielle Walthers. Let's dive in.
Everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the CTRL ALT GAB podcast. I am your host, Gabrielle, and I'm joined today by John Tan, the founder and CEO of CorkVision. We're really excited to dive into all things business, all things wine. Personally, very excited for this specific industry of conversation. We're going to get into a little bit of John's story, his journey with starting CorkVision, and everything he's learned along the way. So thank you, John, for joining us today. We're so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Awesome. To kick things off, when we first met, we spoke about your background and the big pivot you made kind of later in life, becoming a lover of the winery industry and starting a company that really reflected that. I'd love to get you to share with our listeners a little bit more about the story that led you to this industry and starting CorkVision, because I think it's quite a cool one.
As you know, I'm the founder of CorkVision. I'm based out of Napa Valley, California, originally from New York City. In New York, I had co-founded an IT managed service company back in 2009 with a number of people that I worked with. And we grew that company from 2009 till about 2020. And we sold in 2020. But during that time, I actually was going to Napa because I started coming to Napa in about 2012. And at first, I didn't know much about wine. Wasn't too interested in it. I've had wine previously, of course. But when I came out in 2012 and I really saw the beauty of Napa, that's when I started to fall in love with wine. And throughout the course of my tenure at my previous company, I would attend a lot of client dinners, a lot of conferences, a lot of events. And because we're based in New York and a lot of our clients were based in the financial and legal verticals, a lot of those dinners and events revolved around wine and also steak for food. And what goes best with steak but Cabernet? And who makes some of the best Cabernets in the world? Napa Valley. So as I started going to more of those dinners, started getting more exposed to wine, I started becoming more curious about it. And I visited Napa quite often, actually, mainly because it was so much easier for me to go to Napa. But as I came to Napa and as I visited Napa, I started becoming friends with people in the valley. And that's one of the things I truly love about the industry. It's very community driven and it's very community feel. And so, you come here, you start to meet people, they introduce you to other wineries, those people then introduce you to other wineries. And so I started developing these types of relationships. And while I went to the big tasting rooms at first, these relationships helped me discover the small producers, the ones who are typically available at your retail shelves. And I started to fall in love with their wine, started to fall in love with their story. I started thinking about, okay, I really like wine. I really want to learn more about it. How do I get involved in it? After we sold our company and while I was working for the company that purchased us remotely, I had an opportunity to move out to Napa. A friend of mine offered her house for rent. And funny story about this, but this is how I think my best life decisions have been made is after I've had a lot of wine. So,
You might be onto something there, John.
right. So that was in October of 2021. I had come to Napa with a dear friend of mine. We went to 3 wine tastings. We were meeting my friend for dinner. But before dinner, we got to the restaurant early. We had a cocktail and a beer. And at dinner, we had 3 bottles of wine. There were 4 of us at that point. And so I was very sober at the end of this
Stone
dinner.
cold, yeah.
And my friend had said, hey, I have this house for rent. And I said, tell me more. And she told me about the house. And I was like, how much is it? And she told me. And I was like, huh. I'll sign the lease today if you have one.
There you go.
And so that's how we decided to move to Napa. But when I moved here, eventually moved here in February of 2022. And when I moved here, I was still working for the company that bought us, but I knew my time there was ending, and I wanted to do something else. Like I said, I wanted to be involved in the wine industry, but I didn't know how to actually be involved in the wine industry, and I didn't know if the skills that I had in New York would translate over to the industry. So another funny story. And I might be revealing a little bit too much about myself here, but
No, no such thing, John. That's why we're here to get into it.
a friend of mine, a friend of mine invited me to a party, and during that party, I met a winemaker, and she was really cool. And after I left the company, I reached out to her and I said, "Hey, I was wondering if you're available for drinks," because I was actually trying to ask her out on a date. And she said, "Well, yeah, let's do that. What's your schedule like next month?" And I said, "Well, I just left my company, so now I'm actually potentially looking for a harvest internship. So I'm relatively free." And she says, "Wait, really? Are you looking for a harvest internship?" And I was like, "Yeah." She's like, "Well, would you like to work for me?" And I said, "Sure." So ended up working harvest for her in her winery, which was amazing. Never ended up getting the date.
What a strategic pivot on her end.
I
She's
know.
like, I won't go on a date with you, but I will offer you a job. And you're like,
Exactly.
you know what? You drive a hard bargain. I would love to do that. That's
Exactly.
so funny.
We're still great friends. We're very dear friends. That way, the whole story worked out. It was just funny for me. So I started working harvest, and I helped make the 2022 vintage for that winery. And during that time, I was able to get hands-on experience in how the industry works. I saw
Mhm.
some of the challenges they faced. And I will say that Harvest, I tell everybody this, Harvest was the most rewarding yet humbling experience of my life. Because
Mhm.
as you can imagine, from my industry where, I was pretty well embedded in my industry. I knew what I was doing to not knowing anything and really starting
Mm.
off as an
Yeah,
intern.
what a big shift. I want you to continue your story, but I do want you to speak to what doing a harvest at a winery entails. I know I don't know a ton about that, and I'm sure a lot of other people not in the wine industry would be curious to know what that means, like for real, operationally.
One of the things that I learned, I kind of intellectually knew this because obviously wineries make wines once a year, but I
Mhm.
didn't really know that they really only truly make wine once a year, and that is during harvest. So harvest, typically in Napa, starts anywhere from mid-August and goes all the way up to potentially in November. What drives harvest is climate and how the grapes are ripening, but that is the time in which the winemaker decides to harvest the grapes, which means take them off the vine and then process them and start making the grapes into wine. Now, depending on whether or not you're making white wine or red wine, the process is different, but it's a lot of manual work. It's a lot of labor. And I actually had told my friend who was the winemaker that, hey, I'm used to working part of a startup in New York. I'm used to working 7 days a week. I'm happy to work 7 days a week for you. It's only 3.5 months. And she looks at me, she goes, "Yeah, we'll see about that." Because I
Well, you
didn't
say that
know.
now, your body
Yeah.
will be spent. Yeah.
I didn't know what it entailed, but let me tell you, it's the most rewarding because for me, being able to actually see the literal fruits of our labor at the end of each day was something new for me because I was a knowledge worker, I was a consultant. So I didn't really work with my hands, I wasn't on my feet most of the time, but being able to actually be physically taking the pallets of grapes or the bins of grapes, dumping them into a press, taking the juice from the press, and putting it into tank for fermentation and doing all of the work that's needed around maintaining the fermentation, pump overs, punch downs, that type of work. It was really all day, every day. And it was anywhere from 12 to 16-hour days that we were working. We were the seller team, and we're a very small seller team, but the seller team was in at 7 a.m. and we were processing grapes, and we would finish 7, 8, 9, 10 o'clock,
Mm.
depending on how much grapes we were processing. So I lost 30 pounds in 3.5 months. My internship ended November 1st. November 2nd, I gained 35 pounds back.
Yeah, you're like, it didn't stay off very long, but it was a fun journey.
Yeah, but if it gives you an idea, like we were literally on our feet for 12 to 16 hours a day, 6 days a week. And my winemaker was right. At one point, I looked at her and I said, "Okay, I need to do laundry. I need to go grocery shopping. I need to do like
I need to
normal life
sleep.
things."
Yeah, I need my muscles need to recover. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's very interesting. So I don't know if you know this, but I'm based in Canada.
Hmm.
A big wine area is the Okanagan Valley. Tons of wines come out of the Okanagan Valley. I'm sure
Yes.
you're well aware. But my most of my family actually lives in the Vernon Clone area in that valley. Everything's a winery on the Okanagan Lake. And my younger sister and her partner worked for a winery. Now that I know all of this during harvest, because what they were doing was picking the grapes. And yeah, she had a similar story. She was like, I had the craziest farmer's town of my life. My feet never knew so much pain, and I lost so much weight because I
Yeah.
was just traversing this hill up and down and up and down and picking grapes and doing all this thing. And there is a very labor intensive, really boots in the mud type aspect to this very elevated industry. There's a very kind of like salt of the earth type aspect to it, which I love.
Absolutely. And that is something that I loved as well. I mentioned that we would get in at 7 a.m. The vineyard crew, the winery had a full-time vineyard crew, and they would get in at midnight, 11 o'clock the night before to start picking the grapes. You don't want the grapes to necessarily sit there for hours after you pick them. You want to process them almost as soon as they come in. So the vineyard crew would start picking grapes at 11 p.m., midnight, work until 7 a.m., even later. They would still be picking grapes as we started to process.
Mhm.
But what they would do afterwards is actually stay over their shift and help us, because we were a small cellar crew of 3 people at the time. Eventually, we were 4 people, but when we started processing grapes, we were 3 people, and the vineyard crew actually stayed and helped us throughout the process. It's remarkable for me, the fact that these guys have already worked overnight, stayed
Mm,
up all night to pick grapes, which is not easy. It's physical manual labor, and then they
yeah.
would come in and help. And so yeah, your sister, it's definitely labor intensive, but it's also very much driven by passion and love.
Yeah, and that's something at the beginning when you were just sharing your experience getting into wine. You spoke about it in a way that I've noticed now a pattern of folks that are in the wine industry, that I have other family in the wine industry that are in the Okanagan Valley, and that love and that passion, anything that people talk about in relation to being in the wine industry is that they love it. And even the story you shared about the folks that are the vineyard team working additional hours just to get things going. People don't do that if they don't care, and people don't do that if there
Exactly.
isn't that love and passion for it. Like what a
Exactly.
beautiful thing to be a part of that like really brings people together
Yeah.
in just an effortless way. Like everyone that's involved with it seems to really love
Hmm?
doing it, and like that's such a passion for them, and I think that's the best reason to do anything, truly.
I agree, and especially because life gets hard, your job gets hard, but having that passion, having that desire to build whatever it is you're building, whether you're making wine or building a company, that's what sustains you throughout those hard times. And
Yeah.
harvest for a winemaker, I never really understood this until I was there, but harvest for a winemaker is such an incredibly stressful time for them, because they have one chance a year to
Yeah.
get it right. And if they screw up, that could be potentially millions of dollars of
Mhm.
revenue
That's their whole
down
year.
the drain. That's a whole year.
Talk about like it's kind of, this is a crazy analogy to bring up, but it kind of feels like Santa Claus. Like you have one day to do
Yeah.
all of this, otherwise everyone's year is ruined. Maybe that's a good analogy because it kind of speaks to almost the magic of how much pressure is on such a short time frame.
And also, they don't control a lot of the variables that go into winemaking. Winemakers don't control the weather, the climate. There are environmental factors that happen that they have to account for.
Yeah.
If anything, what that experience has taught me is that winemakers are some of the best problem solvers that I've seen. And as we go through harvest, there are issues that arise. We are working with people. We are working with equipment. Sometimes equipment breaks.
Sometimes
No,
people break.
sometimes people break. I know I did a couple
Yeah.
times.
I broke.
Yeah, 100%. We would encounter issues, but every issue that we encountered, no matter how big or small, our winemaker always knew what to do, always had a solution, or if she didn't immediately know what to do, she came up with a solution very quickly on the spot. They are some of the best problem solvers.
When you need to solve a problem, solving it becomes very easy because you
Exactly.
literally have to. It's way harder to solve a problem that is theoretical or down the line a bit or doesn't have today implications. But when we have to solve this problem right now, otherwise the entire year is shot
Yeah.
and no one's going to make any money and our business is going to collapse. How motivating is that to get a solution on the ground? A motivator unlike anything else, really.
Coming into and building a startup, I learned a lot from that, because you're absolutely right. Like we have to face problems every day. We have to solve them. We have to come up with solutions very quickly. And they're depending on the problem. If we don't solve it, then we're screwed.
Yeah, like that's the only
Basically.
option. So bridge me into kind of how that experience working in Harvest
Yeah.
inspired you to launch your own company beyond the physical demands of not being able to do that long term.
Well, I started to see some of the challenges that the production side faced, and because the wineries tend to run small teams and lean operations, I was able to see some of what the hospitality challenges were, some of what the sales challenges were. After I worked harvest, I started to think like, okay, I saw what some of those challenges were with that winery. Let me see what challenges other wineries have. I started talking to a lot of people. I talked to over 150 wineries, just to try and understand what their pain points are, what their challenges are, what the roadblocks are. I worked in different aspects of the industry just to help out friends, not necessarily officially, but I've helped out in tasting rooms. I've helped out with sales. I've helped out with bottling. And throughout those different experiences, I was able to see some commonalities with some of the challenges that the wineries face. A lot of those come back to the technology. And that's where I started to see where I could come in because of my background. I started to host roundtables. with people in hospitality, for example, to understand how they run their process, to understand where their pain points are. And I started to formalize a lot of the ad hoc conversations that I was having, and I started to come up with an idea of building a platform that solves these challenges. And those challenges mainly are the fact that the wine industry has a fragmented technology stack, so different platforms for everything that they do. They may not be fully integrated, which leads to the second problem of data silos. So data lives only in specific platforms. And if you're doing something as simple as checking the status of an order, say I order from your winery and I send you an email, Gabrielle, what's the status of my order? You may have to look at 2 to 4 different places of information before you find the information that you're looking for and then write me an email. That takes time. And that's inefficiency. Those lead to some of the biggest challenges that the wine industry faces, especially since they run lean operations and lean teams. There are oftentimes the salesperson is also the hospitality manager who also happens to run wine club, and they may also do marketing because they have an Instagram account. They're doing the jobs of many people, which is the other problem. Part of that problem also, throughout their normal day-to-day activities, wineries collect a ton of data on the production side, on the sales side, on the hospitality side. But because they run lean operations and lean teams, they don't have the time or the ability to really analyze this data and derive actionable insights. What is the data telling them? What can they do to improve certain metrics based on the data? Now, bigger wineries do have that. The ones that are owned by big conglomerates like Treasury or Constellation, they're bigger, they have larger production, so they have teams that actually analyze data. The smaller wineries don't. 97% of the United States wineries make under 50,000 cases of wine a year, which is small to medium sized. Of those wineries, 95% of them are still family owned and operated. So there are small companies, and those are who I'm trying to help. And so when I started to see this, I started to dive into the platforms they're using. And so I think, okay, I see the challenges. What if I'm able to centralize all of this information, become the system of record for all the data in your winery, but not just become the system of record, actually become the system of knowledge for your winery? What does that mean? Well, system of record, for those not aware, that's your single source of truth for data. This is where you go for your data. That's what I'm looking to become. Beyond that, I'm also looking to leverage AI in order to give wineries actionable insights onto what the data is telling them. So going beyond just showing you what your sales are for 2024, which products sold best, who are your top 10 customers, but also understanding what that means and how you can leverage that data to drive more revenue, increase personalization with customers, and connect better with people. That's
And
what I'm
free
trying
up
to
some
do.
of that very valuable time, especially during those peak seasons that everyone's boots on the ground, focused, working 12, 15-hour days. I think that's huge. Being such a historic industry and being such a community and family-based industry, innovation sometimes I find is slow to reach those. And we see the same thing in the agriculture sector. I'm based in Alberta, so agriculture is huge up here. And we see the same thing with those legacy family-owned companies being slow to adopt things because they don't really have the time. They have to be doing the operations, and they don't know where to look for it. They don't have anyone to help them with implementation. They don't know what they don't know. How are they supposed to know what solution they need? I think you stumbled upon a huge gap. That's kind of perfect, right? Aligned with your passion, utilizing some of your consulting experience from New York in a way that is applicable to your newfound love. I think that's kind of poetic, actually.
Thank you. When I started this journey, I wasn't sure how it would fit in, and I wasn't sure if my skills in New York would translate. But in New York, I learned how to truly listen to your clients and understand their challenges and solve for those challenges. I took those skills and I tried to adapt them to the industries. I didn't want to be just somebody who builds a tech platform because they could. I really wanted to solve what the challenges people are facing. And that's why I spent about 2 years really just talking to people and trying to get an understanding of what their pain points are before we even started writing any code.
I think a big strength that you bring when, as a founder in this space, is having touched so many different pieces of the wine industry. You're like, I've worked in the vineyard, I've worked in what you called it, what was it?
Sales, hospitality, bottling. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like everything, when you approach creating a solution like this, you're like, I have firsthand experience on pretty much every sector of what operating a winery looks like. That one-stop shop piece, I think, comes just from your experience and your introduction into the wine industry. So thank God that girl didn't take you up on the date. Otherwise,
I know.
who knows where we'd be?
I know.
You're like, what a blessing.
I could be making wine today, but no, I actually recognize that I love drinking wine. I love my experience at Harvest, and I love helping make that 22 vintage. But I really just love drinking wine more more than making it.
You know what? Why overcomplicate it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think the more you understand wine, you fall in love with it because you have a deeper appreciation for it.
Yeah.
My partner is in the craft beer space, works with a lot of local breweries. Her parents are super big into wine. They have a very impressive wine cellar. And when we met, I got to know her business and I got to know her family, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much here, and there's such a love for. I think the craft beer space and the winery space are very comparable in the sense
100%.
that I don't know if you've interacted with many brewery people, but the same kind of love and passion and kind of integrity is with those folks as well. It's very cool to see. And I think too, wine is such a social pillar and such a integral piece of human connection in a strange way. And it's really cool to see the intersect of something so seemingly simple, food or a beverage, leading to being a varying pillar of the human experience. Not to get too philosophical, but that's just a cool thing to think about.
You're absolutely right. And that's one of the reasons why I really love wine, because wine is a fantastic beverage. It's a fantastic drink. People like it. But what it is about wine that is special for me is that it is one of the only things that really allow me to build experiences off of. And what I mean by that is I will remember a wine not just because of the wine itself, but the experience I had alongside that wine.
Where you
Whether
were,
I'm
who you were with, what you were talking
Exactly.
about. Yeah.
Exactly. And one of my favorite experiences, I mentioned this earlier, but I love the community aspect of Napa, the wine industry, where they introduce you to other wineries. Technically, they're all competing against each other. They're going after the same client, me. But they said, "Hey, you like my wine? You should try this other wine."
Because
And
it's a
that,
community, yeah, that community
yeah,
piece I think is so beautiful.
it is. And I love being able to get exposed to those types of experiences and then sharing them with others. I have two really, really good friends of mine. We all met in New York. We were all endurance athletes together, worked in different industries. But after COVID, May 2021, when things started to kind of reopen again and we're able to travel, we hadn't seen each other in a while because we had, during that time, two of them had moved out of New York. And so we said, "Hey, why don't we meet in Napa?" One of them has never been there before. The other one has gone once. And I said, "Why don't we meet in Napa? Let's plan a trip." Being able to see their eyes open wide and they're like, "Wow, this is amazing. This is beautiful. I've never seen this before." I get so much joy out of that. I'll tell you a very quick story. On that trip, we went to dinner, and I told my friends, "Hey, you guys pay for dinner. I'll pay for the wine." And I ordered two bottles of wine. The second one was really special. And my friend Jeremy, who was sitting across from me at the table, I told our server, "Please don't show them the wine. Just please pour them a glass. It's a surprise." Jeremy was having a conversation. He swirls the wine in mid sentence, takes a sip, stops talking, looks at the wine, looks at me, looks at the wine, puts it down, and goes, "What the F is that?" That is the most amazing thing ever. I will always remember that, and I get so much joy out of that because I love sharing those experiences with people, and wine helps me have that memory. Um,
Yeah, you're like, we wouldn't be here having this moment together if it wasn't for this thing that's bringing us together. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about post-founding of CorkVision. So
Yeah.
first of all, just some details. How old is CorkVision right now?
so technically, I incorporated the company in 2023, but we are actually in the process of launching our products. We're launching actually next month, and I'm super excited about it. I already have 18 wineries who've signed up for me as beta clients. I actually, and throughout the course of the market research I did, I had a number of wineries say they want to be a part of CorkVision. They're excited about what I'm building because it's solving real world problems for them. But I had to not let everybody into my beta program because we
Yeah.
are a very small team. And
Yes.
I have 18 wineries who've signed up for my beta program. We're launching next month. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
Looking from the beginning to the point where you're successfully launching your products and you have these wineries signed up, what has been the biggest challenge with getting to that space? And when you're looking to getting the next month marker, what is the biggest growth challenge that that either has come up or that you're kind of like anticipating having to tackle?
Resources. We are a startup. We are running similar to a winery, our clients. We are running lean operations, lean teams, wearing multiple hats. I'm running around doing our marketing. I have no marketing background whatsoever. I architected the platform. I'm running the team that's building the platform. I'm having meetings with wineries. I'm having meetings with partners. Resources is definitely a challenge. We're bootstrapping right now, which means self-funding the build of CorkVision. Once we launch and going into our sales and growth mode, my biggest challenge there will also be resources, because one of the things that I want to be able to do for wineries is to make sure when they implement CorkVision, they're leveraging it properly. There's a lot of features and functionality that we are launching with, but to get the full value, I want to make sure that wineries understand what those features are and how to use them in their real world scenarios, right? As you mentioned earlier, the wine industry is very traditional. It is an agricultural industry, so it's hard for them to adapt to new technologies and identify how to start using new technologies. I want to bridge that gap. I want to hold their hand and say, now you have CorkVision, here's how to use it, here's what it can do. Let's talk about how you guys work and see how best we can incorporate CorkVision. That'll take me time and resources. So resources will be is my biggest challenge today and will continue to be my challenge.
For sure. When you look at your clientele and early adopters of CorkVision, are you looking exclusively in Napa Valley, or is your scope kind of North America, the world? What does that look
Great
like?
question. Initially, I planned on launching just in Napa. However, for our beta, I will be launching in Napa and Sonoma. My plan after that was, after 1 year in Napa and Sonoma, expand to the rest of California and maybe even Oregon and Washington, neighboring states, big in the wine industry. And then going to national expansion and global expansion year 2 and year 3. However, I've been posting a lot on LinkedIn, and I've gotten a lot of interest from wineries all over the country now, and actually even globally. I've had wineries in Australia, in New Zealand, in France reach out to me saying, "Hey, what are you doing? We see CorkVision. Can you talk to us about it?" And when I talk to them about it, they're like, "Okay, when are you launching? We want it now."
Especially where and this is being in the marketing industry, my wheels are turning. But speaking to having bootstrap, not seeking VC funding, you have such an advantage where there's really not a ton of folks in the space and solving the problem that you're solving. And there's wine everywhere. The ability to launch globally from the get-go, I know that you're like, my team is small, that it can be very overwhelming, but there's so much opportunity, and people, you're already saying, are going to be jumping at the bit. And even my experience in Canada, there's such a huge wine industry here with the exact same kind of culture of historic companies that are family owned and operated for generations, that are slow to adopt and haven't really switched things up in several centuries. I would encourage you to look at what at least a North American adoption right out the gate would look like, because I think that your funnel might explode.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, hey, that's a good problem to have, right? And I am definitely open to not just limiting where we are. I think if the market demands it, the market dictates it.
Totally. To say no, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I'll take your money. I'll take anyone's money.
No, I won't take your money.
Yeah, not yet. Yeah, yeah. I need to show you how it works, and I need you to understand it, and then we'll take your money later.
Yeah, you're right. I do plan on expanding as quickly as the market dictates. And I do also want to make sure that the wineries are able to utilize CorkVision. I don't want to be implemented and then not be used
for the sake of being implemented. Yeah, that's not productive for sure.
Yeah. Exactly. Although I'm building an AI first platform and a platform that is designed to help make things more automated, more efficient, and give actionable insights, I do think that the fact that the wine industry is a very tradition based industry is actually a good thing, because while AI can help in certain aspects of the production side, as an example, I don't think AI should actually be involved fully in making wine. You don't want somebody to make wine just based on data and numbers, right?
Yeah, and I think that position is going to be very attractive to leadership at wineries too, because I mean, this isn't winery specific attitude, but we've seen kind of a two-pronged wave of AI. Massive adoption, thinking it can, cure cancer and be magical and replace anyone with anything and this be-all end-all solution to everything. And then now people are like, oh,
yeah,
that's not the case at all. And now we're understaffed and we replaced everyone with AI and nothing's actually working. And coming out of the gate and going to market with this attitude of AI is a tool to help increase operational efficiency. And it's not a blanket solution to staffing challenges or, anything like that. I think a lot of companies early on had made that mistake of putting too many eggs in the AI basket. And then it's way easier to put the eggs in than it is to take them out. So I think that's going to, and especially with historic industry, with having these multi-generational companies, having that attitude going into it, I think is going to lead to...
You actually hit on the biggest thing for us is to make sure that wineries trust us.
Totally.
And so
if you don't have trust, you have nothing. And why would anyone buy anything from you if they don't trust you? Yeah.
Exactly. That's some of the things I'm talking to the hospitality team about is, I'm not looking to replace hospitality people with AI. Not at all. As we talked about, it is such a person-driven experience that you can't replace people in it. I don't want to buy wine from a robot. I want to sit with you and hear your story, why you're here, why you're involved in the winery. In this winery, what is the winery story? I want to build that connection with you. I buy wine not necessarily because of the wine. Of course, the wine's going to be good. Napa makes great wine, and so does Canada. But like, I will buy wine mostly because of the person that I'm with. So talking to me about that.
I think too, wine serves as a purpose to be able to share a piece of yourself with other people. If I was going to a party and I was at the liquor store, we have this big liquor store up here called Wine and Beyond, and it's a newer one, and it's humongous. And it has every wine you could ever imagine. Well, that's coming from me. I'm sure it does it. And I would get a bottle of wine from the Okanagan Valley. I would get a Sauvignon Blanc from the Okanagan Valley because that's my favorite wine from my favorite place. My family's there. I can speak to the experience living there, and like, it's a piece of me and my story and my history that I can bridge and share with somebody else. Which, how many things function that way? Not a ton. What a special thing to have embedded in the industry.
Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I've gotten a lot of great support from the industry. Thank you to everybody who's given me time of day to really just sit and talk to them about what their challenges are, and also who helped me design the platform. I designed the architecture and what the front end looks like, but the wineries helped me design it. I wouldn't have been able to build what I've built so far, and I wouldn't be as optimistic about our future would it not be for the support that I've received from the industry.
Definitely. And when you look to, down the line in the next few months, partner with these early adopter wineries on geographic location, which I know, is not a solidified kind of parameter. Yeah. But is there any other kind of selection criteria that goes through your head when you're looking for those early adopters?
Absolutely. One of which is, because the wine industry is so community driven, I'm looking to have leaders in the industry, people that are highly respected, and people who people who look up to them to be part of my beta programs. I will say that the people on my beta program, I've been lucky enough to get some of the more storied and influential families in Napa to be a part of it. I remember when Salesforce first came out, I read Mark Benioff's book, and he talked about how he used his customers to actually sell Salesforce. Through word of mouth, through peer-to-peer marketing. And that's very applicable to the wine industry because it is so community driven that if I have the right people using CorkVision and using it properly and getting the value out of it, then they'll be the best advocates, the best salespeople I could ever have.
Your authority will be built. You'll have those case studies. And that goes back to that trust piece that we talked about, where people are not going to have any reason to doubt you because you have it backed by real world experience from the folks that, need the tool the most. So, but this will be my last question. I want you to speak to what you're most excited about for the future. I know that being in the early stages of kind of getting things off the ground, it can be very stressful and daunting.
Yeah.
But I want you to speak a little bit to what you're most excited for looking to the future.
The experience that I talked about with my friend at the restaurant, and where he took a sip of that wine and said, "What the F is that?" That type of experience is what I'm looking to drive in the future with sales and hospitality, leveraging AI. I'm really excited about where we're going. I'm excited about what we're building now and how it can truly help revolutionize the industry. I can't believe I said revolutionize.
I love that. Confidence. Let's do it. Yeah. I think that's what's happening. I think this is going to it's going to shake some things up. I think in a good way.
Thank you. Yeah.
Toss that word around as much as you want. That's what you're doing.
I'm excited to revolutionize the industry with what we're building now, but I'm also super excited about where we're going. I already have ideas down the road. If you ever watched the show The Bear on Hulu, I think it was season 2, the cousin was working in the restaurant and he overheard one of the guests say, "Oh, I haven't had a Chicago pizza. I wish I had a chance to." So he ran to the Chicago pizzeria, brought it back to the chef, and the chef made it special for them. "We heard you haven't had Chicago pizza. We can't let you leave Chicago without having this pizza." Having that type of personalization, that type of experience, that drives loyalty for life. That person will always remember that experience. That person will talk about that experience to friends. I'm trying to bring that type of personalization and that type of customization to the industry, understanding the fact that they do run lean resources and run small teams. I'm going to be leveraging AI and technologies that we have in place today to allow for that almost automatically. And that's what I'm super excited about. I'm super excited where we're going, how we're gonna change hospitality, make it more personalized for people, and also get people to drink more wine.
Heck yeah. That's such a important piece too. You guys are from my perspective, doing so much right, and you're coming at it from the correct point of view and with the correct intention. And those are the things that matter. And I think those are the things that make or break a founder's experience. Well, thank you so much, John. We appreciate having you. This was such a cool conversation. We haven't had anyone in the wine industry on the podcast yet. And I think what a fun and exciting industry to get to dive into. Thank you so much for joining us. And everyone, make sure you check out CorkVision. I believe your website's just corkvision.com. Check it out. Check them out on social media. I'll reach out to John if you have any questions about their solution or about the best wine. Actually, no, don't email him about wine recommendations. That's not important enough. Just kidding. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Control Alt Gab podcast. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you on the next one.